Hello to the Now page update for March. This is PolyInnovator, and I am your host, Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator. These are these Now page, now, whatever you want to call them, Now page update vlogs, where every month I share with you what is new in my life, what is happening right now, what is coming up. And essentially, what I try to do is try to share people what's going on with what I'm trying to get going, what I'm trying to get moving. And this year, being a multi-phase year, is one of those things where there's a lot going on at once and I'm still failing at juggling everything. And so what I'm going to try to do is go over as much as I can and try to just organize it while talking. Roll the intro. All right, we're back, and what I'm going to try to talk about today is just all the different things going on. So in January, I ended up working pretty much the entire month on the video game, and that was really great. I was very productive. I was very motivated. It definitely helped me get through some of that seasonal depression too by having that motivation intrinsically, and so that was kind of great. But the problem was I didn't work on content, so it almost felt like February was the January of this year. And so I was finally getting all my content back in order. And last year I was definitely pretty disorganized when it came to the release of the content. I made a lot, but basically I had these 30 posts I was trying to get done all year, and I couldn't, for some reason, get them done within a month. Like, even if I was trying to just get a few done a week, I was barely getting one a week done. It was very weird. And I think 2022 was just a hard year in general. Maybe I was recovering from the last 2 years before that. I don't know. I think we all were. And so this year feels like it's already starting off a lot better, and the productivity is better. And so the poly content is something I want to touch on real quick. I didn't touch on it too much in the post, but it was one of my first series I ever came up with, formerly known as the Omni content, just for people who have been around for a while. And the reason why I made it is that it's essentially just a series based off a strategy. I make a blog post. I used to turn that into a slideshow, and then I would use both of those to make a video and then cut out the audio for a podcast. So I made basically 3 to 4 pieces of content out of that. And it definitely was very effective. And had SlideShare not really been like bought out, I probably would have still done that. It's just, I don't really care for it now at this point. I don't really need to make slide decks at this point, even though it was pretty helpful for visuals. And the thing is, I made that series so that I could talk about topics in multiple formats, so that way I could reach multiple people. I make these vlogs as well as a written Now page in order to appeal to 2 different kinds of viewers, as well as I just think it's kind of useful to have both. I don't necessarily need this in a podcast form, but it's one of those things where at least 2 out of 3 is good. This series, though, the poly content series, I ended up having a hard time getting going for some reason. Like, for the first couple years, I only made like 5 or 6. And the intention was to do it daily, because this was before I had all the interviews and the gaming content and the 2 newsletters that I'm really keeping going. So I have a lot of series going on now, but back then I didn't really have anything. I had a couple like Fireside Micro PolyCasts and like the Fireside Codex a little bit. I had a few things going on, but they were inconsistent, and they weren't necessarily a consistency series. Those were more for sharing ideas. So poly content was meant to be my consistency layer, at least once a week, if not every day, so that I could get a ton of content out very quickly. There was a lot of ideas that I wanted to share with the world, and so I listed them out. And some of them I've taken out and put it towards PolyInnovator gaming, some of them I've taken out, put them towards the PolyCast. But for the most part, and maybe even PolyInnovator in some ways, I've kept them all on that poly content list, isolated. Eventually I merged it with my main content system, and now they're all intertwined. But the thing is, I'm still not progressing very fast through them. I'm only doing 1 a week, sometimes more than 1 a week, but for the most part, only 1 a week. But the thing is, now that I'm finally getting more of a steamroll, I have a lot more planned this month and next month and stuff like that, where there's going to be a consistency of at least 1 a week, if not multiple. So I actually have a mini series coming up around the 4 pillars philosophy, something I talk about in the post a little bit. And it's one of those things where this is one of the first mini-series since the multidisciplinary spectrum that I made a couple years ago. That was a very important series I wanted to make, especially since I did a talk on it as well. And I think that series was actually a bit harder because there was a lot more content that I wanted to share, articles and videos and stuff like that. Whereas the 4 pillars is going to be very minimal when it comes to extra resources. It's more just like sharing a philosophy about these different areas of life. And so each poly content episode is going to target a certain pillar and then certain combination of pillars and that kind of thing. And there's about 5 or 6 poly content episodes for that series, and then there's another 4 pillar series down the ways when it comes to the list. I have 1,000 content ideas, and at least 20% of that is through the Poly content. So it's one of those things where I have a ton of content on the way, and I've barely made 30 episodes. So there's a lot that I still haven't done yet. And actually, one of which I'm going to make after this today, or after the swimming post at least. So I have 3 big things I'm making today. I have this now page update, because the first of the month I always got to do it. My rule is I have to do it on the first. I've only broken that rule like once or twice. And then I make my swimming post, which will be here soon as well. And then I'm going to be working on the poly content episode of today, which is around the POLYCAST, where it's basically the polymath of POLYCAST, where I have multiple different series, multiple different topics, and I really take this poly approach to it, which is why I have that topic as the name of the episode. I digress. The point is that it's going to kickstart the launch of my season 6, and I'm really excited about that because I've really wanted to have a more consistent series, and I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of poly and content episodes in the first part of that season, but I'm still hoping to get more interviews going, and now that I'm getting so close to the 100th episode, I can finally start my secondary series. I made a deal with somebody where they're going to be the 100th episode, and that's going to be great. So once I get the secondary interview series, I'll be able to bring back old guests, and that'll help keep the consistency of doing interviews each week. I don't know necessarily if I'm going to have both series per week or just one basically alternating. This really depends on how frequently I can get new guests in and returning guests back. And at the moment, I haven't really been trying too hard to get guests yet. So if you're interested, let me know. I'm looking for multidisciplinary people. And it's definitely very interesting. So I'm going to have that poly and content layer, the PolyCast, PolyInnovator Gaming, which is a newsletter and video once per week, ideally. And then the micro contents. You have all the TikTok clips, all the shorts, all the reels. And it's actually kind of interesting because I'm using Publer for my PolyInnovator Gaming shorts and reels and TikToks, but it doesn't really do TikTok very well. I'm not really happy with it in that regard, but it does shorts and reels really well. And ironically, those are the two that I'm actually really focused on. I don't necessarily need them to be syndicated at the same time. I just want to send all the same content there. So what I'm planning on doing is sending to Instagram first, then shorts, then TikToks. And that way I can actually focus on doing a lot more consistency on TikTok as well. And so beyond that, it's interesting because I have all these different series that I'm doing, and it might seem very overwhelming to a lot of people, but some of the minor series, such like the newsletters or these now page updates that happen every so often, sure, once a week is still pretty quick, or pretty often, but it doesn't really take me that much effort to make them. It's one of those things where this is just a vlog. I don't have to do anything pretty. I don't have to put on makeup, if you will, but I'm just talking to you. I don't have to prepare very much. I write out the post, which gets out all the ideas that I want to talk about for this particular update, and then I expand upon them in the video. It's pretty easy for me to make. For the most part, I do have to edit it. I still have to cut out some things, and then on top of that too, add in the intros and outros. But it's not really too hard to do. Actually, ironically, the newsletters have been a little bit difficult lately because, first off, in the swimming newsletter, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm talking about topics that are a little bit beyond my understanding, such as oceanic swimming. But it's a topic that I wanted to talk about at some point on the newsletter. So I try to share resources more on those posts that I may not know as much about. I've only been in the ocean a couple of times, but it's something that I should share with people because it's important. Understanding riptides is a very important concept, and I should at least mention it because at some point, one of my swim lessons or one of my swim readers are going to go to the ocean, and they may not know about riptides, but by reading it in the newsletter, at least they're aware of it. And so it's a little bit more effort to make those swim posts. The content repurposing newsletter right now is going through a mini series of reviews where I'm reviewing these content repurposing tools, and those are kind of hard. I'm making a video and a newsletter portion of it, and on top of that too, I'm reviewing a tool. I'm trying to go through. It's honestly, I almost want to call them over reviews. So it's over review. That way, it's a little bit of both. It's I'm doing an overview of the tool, so it's showing people how to use it, but also giving a review of it at the same time. And I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people because there's a lot of tools out there that people don't know about. And that's what makes me so excited to share with the world. And so those newsletters have been a little bit more difficult lately, but they're worth it. I don't mind releasing them a little bit later in the day too. I'm not as strict about doing it at noon with these harder to make posts. And then these now page updates, like I said, not too hard to make. But here's the deal. Here's where it gets tough. Because the thing is, when it comes to the non-consistent things, the POLYCAST is one of those things where it hasn't been consistent over the past couple of years. And I had a very large amount of having a ton of poly content or a ton of interviews throughout the seasons. And now I'm starting my 6th season. I'm over 200 episodes in. and I have almost 100 interviews under my belt. But the problem is, it has never been very consistent. And so I'm planning on each year either having 1 or 2 seasons, depending on how busy I am that year. Like this year, I'm really busy, so just 1 season. And so that season's going to be spread out across the year. But I'm hoping to get it done by December, and there's 42 episodes, 52 weeks of the year, 2 months in already. That's not too big of a deal. At the very least, I have a ton of Poly content that's going to fill up a lot of that anyways, and then I'm going to have at least a dozen interviews throughout the season. So it's going to be one of those things where if I need more content, I'll make a fireside micro polycast and call it a day. Those are just random episodes that I find that like there's an interesting topic that I want to talk about, and so I create those micro episodes. Now, beyond that, I have the book that I want to make for how to swim, and then my video game that I want to make. And both of those are very big targets for me. I really actually want to work on the game. I'm stressing myself out actually lately since I haven't been working on it hardly at all. And that's very frustrating. But I also realized I spent the entirety of January doing it. And so I had to spend the entirety of February kind of doing the opposite. So hopefully this month I can do a little bit of both and start doing some micro programming over the course of time. And I need to really go over those code bases that I talked about before and see what's available, see what I can kind of work off of because they're open source, see what I can copy essentially, and then change what I need to fit my style game. And so hopefully I can get that done. I'll have to learn a little bit more about the GD script again because it's been a while. And then the book, for some reason, I have not been writing in it. I don't know why I can't get myself to do it. I have it on my calendar to write 10 minutes a day and like 1 hour on the weekend, but I haven't really been keeping up that habit. Same thing goes for like Duolingo or exercise. I've been getting better with the exercise habit, but I haven't been consistent. And so I need to be more consistent on all these little micro habits because they're all going to add up towards what I'm doing. So at this point, consistency is key. That's what I've been saying for years, but I think over the course of the years, I've been getting more and more consistent. And so there's a lot coming up. I have all these series going on too. And so by kind of juggling all these and eventually getting to be more just expected, like, okay, you can expect a poly and content episode a week. You can expect an interview a week. You can expect obviously the swimming and content newsletters. Oh, last month, I also did create a website for the Poly and Content Digest where I list out all the tools that I have found. And so I'm thinking about expanding that perhaps maybe too, like finding a way to incorporate social media tools, project tools, and then beyond that from there. So I don't know for sure exactly how I'm going to do that, but it is something that's interesting. So I have a few projects going on this year. The project management, the tool site is not necessarily something that's going to be super high priority, but I am working on it on the side, and that's kind of where my focus was instead of the game. Yes, there's a lack of focus there, so people might give me crap for that, but at least I'm doing something and I'm staying productive, and hopefully I can actually get stuff done. That's the key. Cheers, and thanks for watching.